I felt something was wrong. Months before I learned the truth, I used to be the guy who believed communication could fix anything. Not in a cheesy way, not in a let's hold hands and manifest way, in a practical way. If something felt off, you talked. If someone was stressed, you adjusted. If you drifted, you pulled back together. That was my whole philosophy, and for almost 10 years, it worked. My wife, Lauren, and I met in our mid-20s. She was the kind of person who made room feel calmer just by being in it. Soft voiced, quick smile, always warm with strangers. I was the louder one, the problem solver, the one who made plans and wrote lists and believed effort was love. 5 years married, no kids yet. Not because we didn't want them, but because life kept saying, not yet. A normal life, 2 cars, a dog, a small house with squeaky steps, weekend groceries, and those inside jokes that only make sense to the two people who created them. And then it started. Not with a fight, not with a scandal, not with lipstick on a collar, or a credit card charge to a hotel. It started the way rot starts, quietly. Little moments that didn't seem worth mentioning, until they stacked up and became a weight. At first, I just started feeling like I didn't belong. It's hard to explain that feeling to someone who hasn't lived it, because nothing is wrong on paper. She still kissed me goodbye in the morning, still asked what I wanted for dinner, still laughed at the same sitcoms, but something in her eyes that changed, like she was looking past me, not at me. And I did what I always did. I tried to fix what I couldn't name. One Tuesday night, we were eating leftovers at the kitchen island. Our dog, Moose, was sprawled out at our feet like he paid rent. Lauren's phone buzzed. She glanced down and smiled. Not a polite smile, not a that's funny smile, a private smile, a smile that belonged to a different room. I stared at my plate like it had suddenly become fascinating. Work? I asked, trying to sound casual. Yeah, she said quickly. Just a thing. She flipped her phone face down. I nodded, took a bite, pretended my chest didn't tighten. That was the first time I remember thinking, why does she look happier at that screen than she looks at me? But I didn't say it, because the truth is scary, and as long as you don't say it out loud, it stays smaller. Behind closed doors, the first stage of betrayal isn't cheating, it's distance. And distance is easy to explain away. She was tired, I was busy. We'd been together a long time. This is what adult life looks like. That, that's what I told myself. That's what I wanted to believe. A week later, she came home late. Not late, late, just later than usual. I was on the couch, laptop open, half watching a game and answering emails. She walked in and her hair was slightly messy, like she'd been running her hands through it. Her cheeks looked flushed. Long day? I asked. She shrugged. Yeah. She leaned down, kissed my cheek, quick, light, not lingering, and walked straight toward the shower. Usually she'd tell me something. A coworker story, a complaint, a funny thing someone said. That night she didn't. And I realized something else. When Lauren used to come home, she arrived with her life. Now she arrived like she had already lived the real part somewhere else. I started noticing patterns. Her phone never left her side. Not on the coffee table, not on the counter, not even in the bathroom. If she got up, the phone went with her. If a notification popped up, she'd tilt the screen away, like I was a stranger. One Friday, I reached for her phone by accident. Not to snoop, It was on the sofa cushion between us, and I was moving it so I could sit. The moment my fingers touched it, she reacted like I touched the hot stove. Her hand snapped out fast. She grabbed it. Her smile was still on her face, but her eyes sharpened. What? I asked. I was just nothing, she said too quickly. "Yeah, sorry. Reflex. I've just got stuff going on with work." I wanted to believe her. I really did. So I laughed it off. Okay, okay, I said, raising my hands like I'd been caught stealing. I'm innocent. She gave a small smile, and then she looked back at the screen, and I felt like the third person in my own marriage. Behind closed doors, I started doing something I'd never done before. I started listening for her, not because I suspected cheating at first, but because my brain kept trying to protect me. It kept saying, maybe you're imagining it. So I watched her like a scientist. I noticed she stopped using my name as much. She used to say babe constantly. Babe, can you grab the mail? Babe, lost at this. Babe, you'll never guess what happened. Now it was mostly silence, or short sentences without warmth. Can you get the mail? Look at this. We need more detergent. Like we were roommates. One night I tried to force it back to normal. I planned a dinner, not a huge date, just a simple Aston. I cooked her favorite pasta, lit a candle, put music on. When she walked in, she looked at the table like she was being tested. Oh, she said, blinking. What's this? A date, I said, smiling. Because I like my wife. She laughed politely. You're sweet. But it didn't reach her eyes. We sat down. We ate. I asked about her day. Fine. I asked about a project she'd mentioned months ago. It's fine, I asked. Are you happy? That one made her pause. Her fork hovered over her plate. She looked at me like she was weighing her answer. Yeah, she said slowly. Why wouldn't I be? I forced a laugh. I don't know. Just feel like you've been far away lately. She exhaled through her nose. I'm not far away, she said. I'm just tired. Can we not do this? Do what? I asked. She leaned back, irritation flashing for a second. This analysis. Everything doesn't have to be a conversation. I stared at her, because that wasn't my Lauren. My Lauren believed in conversations. My Lauren was the one who used to say, don't let things sit. It turns into resentment. Now she was telling me to stop talking. I nodded. Okay, sorry. But inside something cracked. Behind closed doors, that's what hurt the most. Not proof, not certainty, just the feeling of being gently pushed out of a place that used to be mine. And then comes the night I woke up and she wasn't in bed. It was around 2 a.m. The room was quiet except for the heater clicking and Moose breathing in his sleep. I reached for her. Empty sheets. At first I thought she was in the bathroom. Then I heard the faint sound of typing. Not loud, just that tiny, repetitive tap. I walked out into the hallway. The kitchen light was off, but the glow from the window made a pale rectangle across the floor. Lauren stood near the window, her face lit by her phone. She wasn't just texting, she was smiling. That private smile again. I froze for a second watching her. It was such a strange thing to see someone you love looking happy in a way that doesn't include you. Lauren, I said softly. She jumped, not a little startled, a full body flinch like she'd been caught doing something dangerous. Her phone snapped down against her chest. Jesus, she whispered. You scared me. What are you doing? I asked. She blinked fast. I couldn't sleep. Who are you texting at 2 in the morning? Her eyes flicked away. No one. Just a friend. Jenna. She's upset about something. It was plausible. And that's why lies work. They're not wild. They're close enough to real. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said, still looking at her. Everything okay? Yeah, she said. Go back to bed. Then she walked past me, phone in hand, and disappeared into the bedroom, like the conversation had never happened. I stood there for a long second, alone in the kitchen, and in my head, my old belief tried one last time to protect me. Maybe she really couldn't sleep, but my body knew. Your body always knows before your mind does. Behind closed doors, I went back to bed next to my wife and felt like I was lying beside someone I didn't fully know. It didn't get better after that night, it got quieter. Which sounds harmless until you realize silence can be a weapon. Lauren still did all the normal things. She bought groceries, she paid bills, she asked if I wanted coffee. But the emotional parts of her, those small human moments, were suddenly rationed, like affection was something that had to be earned again. And I did what betrayed people almost always do before they know they've been betrayed. I blamed myself. I started reviewing the last year of our marriage like game footage. Where did I mess up? When did I stop trying? Was I less attractive, less fun, less interesting? Maybe I'd become boring. Maybe I talked about work too much. Maybe I didn't plan enough trips. Maybe I stopped dating her. So I tried harder. I bought flowers on a random Wednesday. She smiled politely. Thank you, she said. I waited for her to smell them the way she used to hug me, to say, "What's the occasion?" She didn't. She carried them to a vase like she was completing a task. Behind closed doors, I started measuring love by reaction, and that's a miserable way to live. I suggested we take a weekend trip. Not right now, she said. Work is insane. I suggested movie nights. Maybe. I suggested we turn phones off at dinner. She laughed like I told a joke. What are we? 90, she said. I forced a smile, but inside I felt something twist. Because I wasn't asking for control, I was asking for presence. One Sunday I tried again. We were folding laundry in the bedroom. Normal, domestic, safe. I held up one of her sweaters. You remember when we bought this? I asked. That little place in Asheville? She glanced up. Yeah, that was a good weekend, I said, smiling. We should do something like that again. She folded a towel. Neat, precise. Maybe, she said. I waited. Nothing. I swallowed. Do you still like being with me? That got her attention. Her hand stopped. She looked at me like I'd spoken a different language. What kind of question is that? She asked, irritation rising instantly. I don't know, I said quietly. I just miss you. She exhaled, sharp. I'm right here. That's not what I mean. She picked up another towel and folded it harder than necessary. I don't have the energy for this, she said. You're being dramatic. Dramatic. That word hit me like a slap. Because I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't accused her of anything. I was just asking. But that's what distance does. It makes your needs look unreasonable. Behind closed doors, I started apologizing for feelings that were completely valid. I'm sorry, I said. I'm just tired. Yeah, she said, not looking up. Me too. That night, she went to bed early. I stayed up, and for the first time in our entire relationship, I did something that made me feel sick. I checked her location, not because I wanted to control her, because I wanted reassurance, because I needed something solid to hold on to. Her phone showed she was at home. Relief washed over me, and then I hated myself for needing that relief. The first real crack, the one I couldn't ignore, came during an office event. Lauren's company was doing a little holiday mixer at a restaurant. Not a huge party, just coworkers, spouses, some appetizers, awkward small talk. Lauren asked if I wanted to come. It sounded normal, so I said yes. We got dressed. She wore a dark green dress I loved on her. I told her she looked beautiful. She smiled. Thanks. That was it. No blush, no playful stop, no spark. At the restaurant, everything looked fine. She introduced me around. I shook hands, smiled, made jokes, but every time she thought I wasn't looking, her eyes drifted, like she was searching for someone. Then I saw him, a guy standing near the bar, laughing with two other coworkers. Tall, neat haircut, confident posture. When Laura noticed him, her face changed. It happened fast, so fast you could miss it if you weren't already watching. A brightening, a softness, that private smile. He looked over, their eyes met, and for a half second it was like I wasn't there. Then she turned to me quickly, like she'd caught herself. This is Ryan, she said, gesturing. He's on my team. Ryan stepped forward. Nice to finally meet you, he said, holding out his hand. His tone was friendly, normal, but his eyes held mine a fraction too long. I shook his hand. Yeah, you too. Lauren laughed a little too brightly. Ryan's been a lifesaver, she said. He's basically kept our whole project from falling apart. Ryan smiled. Lauren's been modest. She's the reason anything runs. They both left, and something in me went cold. Because I recognized that rhythm, that easy back and forth, that chemistry that doesn't need effort. Behind closed doors, I told myself I was paranoid. At the party, I tried to stay near her, not clingy, just present. But she drifted. She'd wander over to Ryan's group, laugh, touch his arm lightly when she spoke. Touch, not a hug, not a flirt that screams, just a small, casual touch that says, I'm comfortable with you. That's the kind of touch that doesn't happen by accident. At one point, I walked up behind her while she was talking to him. I heard Ryan say, I know, I miss it too. Lauren laughed low. Then she saw me and her laughter stopped, like a switch flipped. Hey, she said quickly. I'm her husband, I said, forcing a smile. Ryan's face didn't change, but his eyes flicked down for a second. Of course, he said smoothly. We were just talking about the project. Lauren nodded too fast. Yeah, work stuff. I stared at both of them. Then I said something I didn't plan to say. Do you text my wife at 2 in the morning about work stuff too? Silence. A tiny sharp silence. Lauren's eyes widened in warning. Ryan's smile tightened. He chuckled awkwardly. Ah, no, definitely not. Lauren grabbed my arm, hard. Babe, she said through her teeth, still smiling for the room. Can't we talk? She pulled me away toward the hallway near the bathrooms. As soon as we were out of earshot, her smile vanished. What the hell was that? She hissed. I blinked. What? You embarrassed me, she snapped. I embarrassed you, I repeated, stunned. Lauren, you've been acting. Stop, she said sharply. You're being insecure. Insecure? I laughed once bitter. You flinched when I touched your phone? You disappear at night? You barely talk to me. And you're laughing with him like you're, like I'm what? She demanded. I stared at her, and the truth hovered on my tongue, but I couldn't say it yet. Not because I didn't believe it, because saying it would make it real. So I swallowed. I don't know, I said quietly. Like you're happier with him than with me. Her expression shifted, annoyance turning into something like pity. You're exhausting, she said. That word landed in my chest. Exhausting. Like my pain wasn't an inconvenience. Behind closed doors, I realized something that night. When someone starts protecting their connection with another person, they stop protecting you. The confession didn't come with screaming, it came with a calmness that felt prepared. I chose the evening, dishwasher humming, Moose sleeping on the rug like nothing in the world could be wrong, the kitchen light warm and normal. Lauren sat across from me at the table with her hands folded like she was waiting for a verdict. Her eyes were red, not fresh tears, but the kind that you get after you've been crying for a while and then forcing yourself to look normal. Behind closed doors, she had already lived the moment I was about to experience. We need to talk, she said. My chest tightened instantly. That sentence never leads to anything good. I didn't say anything at first. I just nodded, slowly, like I needed my body to catch up with the words. Lauren inhaled like she was about to jump into cold water. I've been confused, she started. Confused. I watched how carefully she chose that word. Not I betrayed you. Not I lied. Not I cheated. Confused. I didn't plan this, she said fast. It just happened. My mouth went dry. What happened? I asked, even though my body already knew. Lauren stared at her hands. There's someone else, she whispered. The air left the room. It wasn't dramatic. It was like someone turned down the oxygen. I sat very still, because if I moved, I felt like I'd shatter. A coworker, I said. She nodded. I swallowed. Ryan, I said. Her eyes flicked up, surprise, then fear. I let out a short laugh that didn't sound like me. Of course. Lauren started crying. I'm sorry, she said. I never wanted to hurt you. And that's the moment something strange happened. I didn't feel anger. I felt distance, like I was watching a scene instead of living it, like I'd already known. And this was just confirmation. How long? I asked. She wiped her face. Not that long. How long? I repeated, slower. She swallowed hard. A few months. Months. My head filled with images I hadn't asked for. Her smiling at her phone. Her flinching at the kitchen window. Her calling me dramatic. Behind closed doors, my marriage had been ending for months. While I was still trying to save it, I stared at her. Did you sleep with him? I asked. She hesitated. That hesitation was louder than any yes. Yes, she whispered. My hands clenched under the table. I nodded once, like I was taking information in a meeting. Then the question came out of my mouth before I could soften it. Would you have stopped if I hadn't found out? Lauren's cry turned raw. I don't know, she said. And that answer told me everything. Because I don't know doesn't mean confusion. It means she didn't choose me until she had to. I stared at her, and something inside me went very quiet. Then I asked another question. Are you still talking to him? She shook her head too fast. No, I mean, yes, because we work together, but not like that. Not anymore. Not anymore. Those two words felt like a lie, dressed up as reassurance. Did you tell him you were going to tell me? I asked. She blinked. What? Did you tell him you were going to confess? Lauren looked down, and I felt my stomach drop before she even answered. I I told him I couldn't keep doing this, she whispered. I leaned back slightly, so there had been a conversation, a goodbye. a plan. Behind closed doors, they got closer, and I got the wreckage. I stared at the edge of the table, trying to breathe. Why now? I asked, voice low. Why tell me now? Lauren wiped her face again, hands shaking. Because I couldn't live with it, she said. It was killing me. That sentence nearly made me laugh. Because it was killing me too. And I didn't even know. Behind closed doors, even her guilt had been a private experience. I looked up at her. Do you love him? I asked. Her eyes widened. No, she said quickly. No, God, no. Then what was it? I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't know, she whispered. It was attention. It felt like I was being seen. I stared. But I see you, I said, and my voice cracked slightly. I've been begging you to let me in for months. Lauren sobbed harder. I know, she said. I know. I'm horrible. And that's when I realized something else. She wanted me to comfort her. She wanted my arms around her. She wanted me to tell her she wasn't horrible. And behind closed doors, that's what betrayal does. It flips the roles. The person who caused the wound cries, and the wounded person is expected to manage it. I didn't move. I didn't touch her. I just sat there, looking at a woman I loved and realizing I didn't know who she was anymore. Then I asked, tell me everything. Lauren froze. What? Everything, I said. Don't give me the sanitized version. Don't give me the version you can survive. Give me the truth. She started shaking her head. I can't, you can, I said. Calm, and that calm scared even me. Because I am living in the dark, and that you don't get to control the dark anymore. Lauren's mouth trembled. She nodded slowly. So she told me. Not all at once, in pieces. It started at work. They'd been put on the same project. Late hours, a lot of pressure. He'd been helpful and funny. Safe. He'd started texting her about deadlines, then about how are you holding up, then about things that weren't work at all. Did you complain about me? I asked. Lauren flinched. No, she whispered. I waited. She looked down. Not? Not at first. At first, I felt my throat tighten. What did you tell him? I asked. She swallowed. That you were busy, that we were distant. Distant. The word landed like a knife. Because we weren't distant by accident. We were distant because she had started giving her emotional energy elsewhere. I stared at her. When did it become physical? I asked. Lauren's hands were twisting together. A couple months ago, she whispered. Where? I asked. Her eyes filled again. In his car once, she said. After work, and once at his place. My stomach turned. I put a hand on the table and felt the wood under my palm just to anchor myself. Did you ever bring him here? I asked. No, she said instantly. No, never. I didn't know whether to feel relief or disgust that this was now what my standards were. Then I asked the question that came from pure pain. Did you ever look me in the eye after being with him? Lauren started sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe, and her silence was the answer. Behind closed doors, I realized something brutal. The betrayal wasn't just the act. It was the ordinary life built on top of it. Dinner, Netflix, I love you, all sitting on a secret. At some point, Lauren reached across the table, trying to touch my hand. I pulled back. She flinched like I'd hit her. Please, she whispered. Please don't hate me. I stared at her. I don't even know what I feel, I said quietly. And that was the truth. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a glass. I just sat there, numb, and listened as she cried and apologized and tried to wrap the situation in words that made her feel less like the villain. Then she said something that still echoes in my head. "It didn't mean anything," she whispered. And I looked at her. "How can you say that?" I asked. "It meant enough for you to risk everything." Lauren's face crumpled. "It was a mistake." "No," I said, and my voice was sharper now. "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. This was a series of choices." She went quiet. Then I asked one more thing. "Is he married?" Lauren hesitated. "No," she whispered. "Of course not." That also felt like a pattern. People who do this often pick someone with less to lose. I stood up slowly. Lauren looked up at me, terrified. "Are you leaving?" she asked. I stared at the kitchen window. The same window where I'd found her texting at 2 a.m. "I don't know," I said. And I meant it. Because the hardest part wasn't the cheating. It was realizing the person I trusted most had been living a separate life behind closed doors. That night I didn't sleep. Lauren offered the couch, then offered to leave, then offered to do anything. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while she cried softly in the living room. Moose wandered in and out, confused, whining quietly. And every time I closed my eyes, the same question hit me like a wave. How long was I laughing in the same room while she was already gone? We didn't divorce right away. That was my choice. Not because I didn't understand what she'd done, but because 10 years isn't just time, it's history. It's every ordinary day that quietly becomes your life. So when Lauren said, "I'll do anything," I told myself we could try. Not because I was sure, because I was scared of what starting over would cost. A few days later, we started therapy. Dr. Patel's office was small and calm, like the room itself was designed to lower your heartbeat. Lauren sat on the couch with her shoulders rounded, eyes puffy, holding tissues like a shield. I sat across from her, stiff, trying to act like my life hadn't been split open. Lauren kept using soft words at first. I was confused. I felt lost. It didn't mean anything. Dr. Patel listened, that gently stopped her. "Confused is a feeling," she said. "What choices did you make?" Lauren's mouth opened and closed. It took her a minute to say it without hiding. Then she finally whispered, "I had an affair." Hearing it out loud in a quiet room hit harder than hearing it at our kitchen table, because in that office there was nowhere for it to blur. Dr. Patel looked at me. "What do you need right now?" she asked. I didn't say forgiveness. I didn't say love. I said the only thing I could actually build on. "I need the full truth," I said, "not the edited version." Lauren flinched like that sentence hurt her. Dr. Patel nodded once. "Full disclosure is part of repair," she said. "No gaps." And even though I wanted the truth, I was terrified of what it would do to me. That night, Dr. Patel asked Lauren to write it down. A timeline. Specific, honest, not graphic, just real. Lauren sat at the dining table for hours with a notebook, writing like her life depended on it. I sat in the living room, with Moose at my feet, listening to the house. The heater clicking, the fridge humming, everything normal. Except nothing was normal. Near midnight, Lauren walked in with a few pages in her hands. Her fingers were trembling. "I wrote it," she whispered. I didn't take it right away, because taking it felt like accepting a new identity. The husband who reads a report about his own betrayal. Finally, I reached out and took the pages. Lauren sat on the edge of the couch like she expected me to explode. I didn't. I just unfolded the paper and started reading. Yeah. Disclosure letter, Lauren. The contact with Ryan started as work in late spring. It turned personal in early summer. I responded and I hid it. I deleted messages to protect what I was doing. The first physical contact happened after work in his car in the parking garage. After that, we met two more times after work for physical contact. We had sex one time at his apartment. I told you I had to stay late. I went home afterward and acted normal. I did not bring him into our home. No one knew except Jen in a vague way. The night you found me texting at the window, I was texting Ryan. I lied because I panicked. I'm telling you because I couldn't keep living two lives. I will answer your questions and accept the consequences. I read it twice. The first time, I felt numb. The second time, my body started reacting. Hands shaking, stomach turning. Because the fog was gone, and one line hit me harder than everything else. The night you found me texting at the window, I was texting Ryan. That moment replayed instantly. Her flinch, her phone snapping to her chest, her quick lie about Jenna. And suddenly I understood something that should have made me feel better, but didn't. I hadn't been paranoid. I had been right. I looked up at Lauren. She was crying silently, eyes wide like she was waiting to see whether I'd stay or disappear. I asked, "Did you ever say you loved him?" Lauren shook her head. No. I believed her, and it still didn't help because love wasn't the only thing that mattered anymore. Loyalty did. After that letter, our life turned into procedures. Not romance, procedures. We wrote an accountability agreement at the dining table like we were drafting a contract. Full transparency, phones, passwords, no deleting messages. Location sharing stays on. No private contact with Ryan outside work. Immediate disclosure if he contacts her for anything non-work. Weekly therapy. Daily check-ins with no phones. Lauren signed the page like it was a vow. I didn't sign. She noticed this. Can you sign too? She asked quietly. Signing doesn't make me safe, I said. It just makes you accountable. Her face collapsed, but she nodded, and something in me recognized the pattern even then. She wanted reassurance. I needed reality. The weeks that followed were a strange kind of calm. Lauren became the best version of herself. She cooked more. She asked how I was feeling. She left her phone face up like a demonstration. She volunteered her location before I asked. But it didn't feel like love. It felt like crisis management. Every notification still hit me like a punch. Every late meeting still made my stomach drop. My body didn't care how nicely she behaved. It remembered what she was capable of. In the next therapy session, Dr. Patel asked me a simple question. How does it feel in your body? She said. I almost laughed because the answer sounded dramatic, but it was true. It feels like I'm scanning for danger all the time, I said. Dr. Patel nodded like she wasn't surprised. That's your nervous system trying to protect you, she said. Your reality changed without your consent. Lauren whispered, I didn't mean. Dr. Patel stopped her gently. Intent does not cancel impact, she said once clearly. Lauren went quiet. I sat there and realized something cold. Even if Lauren never cheated again, the part of me that felt safe might not come back. Then came the moment that looked small on the outside. About a month later, Lauren told me Ryan had moved teams. It'll be easier now, she said. Like that solved something. He'd moved teams, but the project handoff was still in progress. 2 days after that, we were in the kitchen. Moose was whining for his dinner. Lauren's phone buzzed, and I saw the name flash before she could move. Ryan. She froze. I froze. The air went in. I said, very quietly, "Why is he texting you?" "It's work," she said too fast. "Show me." She unlocked her phone and held it out. The message was boring, work-related, short, and it still didn't matter, because she hadn't told me he contacted her. That was the agreement. Immediate disclosure. No gaps. "You weren't going to tell me," I said. "I was," she whispered. I just, I didn't want to trigger you." That sentence did something to me, because it sounded caring, but it was still control. It was still her deciding what I was allowed to know. It was still the same reflex that built the affair in the first place. Hide first, explain later. I stared at her. "You hear yourself?" I asked softly. "You're still choosing what I'm allowed to know." Lauren started crying immediately. "It was nothing," she said, and I said, calm and exhausted, "I don't live in nothing anymore." At the next therapy session, Dr. Patel didn't focus on the content of the text. She focused on the reflex. She said the message itself could be harmless and still cause damage because it reopened the wound. She said repair requires consistent truth over time, not comfort. Then she looked at me. "Did you feel safe?" she asked. I stared at the floor for a long moment, and when I finally answered, my voice was barely there. "No." Lauren sobbed. Dr. Patel stayed calm. She didn't tell me to forgive. She didn't tell me to stay. She just named the truth. Trust isn't rebuilt by promises. It's rebuilt by reality. And reality takes time. After that session, I realized I wasn't living in just the present. I was living in surveillance mode. I wasn't rebuilding a marriage. I was managing damage. And it was changing me. Behind closed doors, the question started forming in my head, again and again, like a warning I couldn't silence. Am I staying because I love her, or because I'm afraid to start over? And the answer stopped being complicated. The moment that changed everything wasn't a new affair. It wasn't catching her again. It was something smaller, a day that looked normal from the outside. I had taken Moose for a walk after work. It was cold, gray sky. The neighborhood smelled like fireplaces. I came home and Lauren was in the kitchen making dinner. For a second it looked like our old life. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced down and she smiled. Not big, just a soft little curve of her mouth. That private smile. And I realized, months after confession, therapy, promises, her body still reacted to someone else. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was someone new. Maybe it was nothing. But the point was this. I could no longer live in maybe. Behind closed doors, I was exhausted. Not from work, from being on guard. I sat at the kitchen island while she cooked. She was humming quietly, like everything was fine. And something in me finally asked the honest question I had been avoiding. Am I staying because I love her? I thought, or because I'm afraid to start over. The answer came instantly. I loved who she used to be. I loved the version of us that felt safe. But I didn't love what I had become. Suspicious, anxious, hyper-aware. I waited until dinner was done. We sat down. Lauren talked about a show she wanted to watch, a coworker who annoyed her, a sale at Target. Normal. And I listened like someone listening to a stranger. After a few minutes, I put my fork down. "Lauren," I said. She looked up. "Yeah?" "I can't do this anymore," I said quietly. Her face emptied. "What?" "I'm not leaving because you cheated," I said, voice shaking. I'm leaving because I lost myself trying to survive it. Tears sprang instantly to her eyes. No, she whispered. Please, we are doing better. I laughed softly. Are we? I asked. Or are we just be quieter? She reached across the table, grabbed my hand. Her grip was tight, desperate. I'm sorry, she cried. I'll do anything. That's the tragedy. They always offer anything after the damage is done. But behind closed doors, the real damage wasn't the sex. It was the loss of safety. I pulled my hand back gently. I believe you're sorry, I said, but I can't live like this. She shook her head violently. You're my husband, she sobbed. And you were my home, I whispered. Now I don't know where home is. I packed the bags that night. Moose watched me from the doorway, confused. Lauren followed me around the bedroom, pleading. I'll quit my job. I'll blush him. I'll move. I'll do anything. And maybe she meant it. But I realized something cold and true. If she had wanted to protect us that badly, she would have done it before I broke. I stood at the front door with my bag. Lauren was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Please, she whispered, don't leave. I looked at her, and I didn't hate her. That's what surprised me. I felt grief and disappointment and a strange calm. I hope you figure out why you did it, I said softly. But I can't be the person you learn that on. Then I walked out. People think living is the hard part. It's not. The hard part is what happens next. When you wake up in a quiet room and realize nobody is there to lie to you anymore. I stayed at my friend Chris's place for a week. He didn't ask a million questions. He just handed me a beer and said, you don't have to talk until you want to. Behind closed doors, I cried in his guest shower like a teenager. Not because I missed Lauren's body, because I missed certainty. Because my brain kept replaying every memory like it was evidence. Was she already cheating here? Was she thinking about him here? Was this laugh real? It was torture. Lauren texted constantly. Long paragraphs, apologies, promises, photos of Moose sleeping, voice notes of her crying. Sometimes I almost answered. Then I'd remember that kitchen window, that flinch, that smile at the phone, and the cold would return. I met with her once, 2 weeks later, in a public place, coffee shop. She looked smaller, no makeup, puffy eyes. I miss you, she whispered. I nodded. I know. I ended it, she said quickly. With Ryan, I swear. I believed her, and it didn't matter. That's the thing. Trust doesn't break like glass. It breaks like bone. Even when it heals, it aches. She reached for my hand. I let her touch my fingers for a second. Her skin was familiar. It almost made me forget. Then she said quietly, I didn't mean for it to happen. And something in me snapped again. Lauren, I said, voice tight, you don't accidentally build a second relationship. You don't accidentally lie for months. You don't accidentally come home and look me in the eyes while you're doing it. She started crying harder. I was weak, she whispered. I nodded. Yeah. She looked up, desperate. Doesn't that mean we can fix it? She asked. If it was weakness, not love. Behind closed doors, that question isn't the one that traps people. Because it sounds like hope. But it's not. It's an excuse dressed like honesty. I leaned forward slightly. Do you know what your weakness did to me? I asked quietly. She shook her head, tears falling. It taught me that my safety was optional, I said. That our marriage was something you could step out of whenever you felt lonely. She covered her mouth. I can't unlearn that, I said. I stood up. She grabbed my sleeve. Please. I gently pulled away. I'm not punishing you, I said softly. I'm saving myself. Then I walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. It's been a while now. Not years, but long enough that the shock has faded. Long enough that the story feels like something I lived, not something that's still happening. Lauren and I finalized the divorce quietly. No dramatic courtroom scene, no screaming, just paperwork and silence. Sometimes I still think about her, not with hate, with a kind of sadness, because I don't believe she is evil. I think she was afraid to be honest, afraid to be the bad person. So she chose a path that let her pretend she was still good. Behind closed doors, that's what cheating often is. Not romance, not passion. A coward's way of avoiding truth. And I learned something that changed me forever. People don't always leave suddenly. They leave in pieces. A smile that isn't for you. A phone turned away. A flinch in the kitchen. A sentence like, "You're exhausting." By the time the confession comes, you've already been grieving. So here's my question to you. If you were in my place, would you have given a second chance? Or do you believe that once trust breaks, it never fully comes back?